You are listening to Midlife with Courage. This is where women in midlife come for inspiration, motivation, and sometimes a little education to help them live more boldly. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Midlife with Courage. I am Kim Benoit, your host. I'm so happy to have you all here, and I'm so very happy to have my guest with me here today. Her name is Dr. Angele Close. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. That was excellent pronunciation.
Thank you. I was a little nervous about it, but I love your name. I love saying it. Today, we are going to talk about how you help women live more fully right now. So tell us, where does that come from? We're talking about in the role of motherhood. So where does that all start?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I have 3 kids and for me it was, I had them while I was already in graduate school to become a therapist. So I already knew I want to be a therapist. So I've always been really interested in healing and personal growth and development. That's just kind of who I am. That's just how I'm hardwired. And then a few years, the start of having my kids was fairly smooth, pretty uneventful, pretty typical, those early years. But then as my kids got a little older, and my firstborn is neurodiverse. And so when he was like at this age of, so we didn't know this until he was 7, 8, 9, started to have some challenges, and just these typical ways of parenting were just not working. And I was juggling, my career and the 3 kids. And then we moved to the United States from Canada. So that's where I have my French name, right? It was my
There
French
we go.
Canadian mother. But yeah, it was just this perfect storm of just like stressors and just feeling like I'm sort of failing at being a mom. Like this just isn't working. I must suck because I'm not getting kind of the outcomes that I would think I would get. And then at work, of course, because I'm, working mom with 3 kids, I'm the last one to get to work, the first one to leave. And just, I sort of felt like I wasn't really my best self at work even. So it just was really a rocky time. But of course, it is those rocky times that we are at the precipice of transformation, really, right? And that's what was true for me. So that was sort of like, if we use the term rock bottom, or just, it was this perfect storm of stressors and change. And it just really led me to have to heal, to have to turn towards myself and go, what is going on? Like I was so kind of surprised because I was this therapist and trained in meditation. I'd been meditating for years, and like just suddenly all the things that I knew weren't working anymore. And so I needed something new. And I learned that this word matrescence, which sadly it's still not in our dictionary yet, but we're going to get it in there, which explained a lot of what I was feeling, what I was going through. So matrescence, it's a word that was coined by an anthropologist who was interested back in the 70s, discovering sort of what happens to women as they become mothers. What happens just as human? And it turns out a lot. It turns out it's a really profound developmental transformation of our identities. We learn, we grow, we change, we evolve. But this was all news to me because nobody had been talking to me, or the books I had read to prepare for motherhood. Nothing sort of spoke about what was more nuanced, these like inner little shifts, like feeling ambivalent. Part of me really loves my career, but then I also want to be there with my kids, and I feel torn and I feel ambivalent about motherhood. But so it was just really, really hard. But when I understood this word, it made a ton of sense to me. And I felt just kind of seen, and instead of sort of blaming myself, because I just thought, well, I guess I'm just not a good mom, or I'm not doing this right. I'm not that super mom. I'm really struggling internally here. And this word made sense to me. And so that was kind of the starting of a new journey for me to really want to work with moms, because I thought, why do not all moms understand that they're in this profound transformational phase, that all of their feelings make sense? And I just kind of wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And also part of matrescence is to understand that through this change is you are on a healing journey, right? So our children are sort of little mirrors to us about what we didn't get. Of course, all parents do the best they can with what they have, but we're imperfect, and trauma is passed down one generation to the next until we do our healing and sort of break these cycles. And so for me, that's what parenting has very much been. It's been a mirror opportunity of, I just, because my kid wasn't responding ultimately, and he's been my greatest teacher. It really was this pivotal thing of, okay, it's time for me to go back inside and I have some more work to do. And it's been a really profound transformational opportunity. So for me, I feel like, if all moms knew about matrescence, they might not struggle with shame, mom guilt, self blame so much. And then the next piece is to see it as a profound opportunity of really growth, to break out of the shell of us trying to be, we go from wanting to be that good girl to then be that good mom. And
Mhm.
then really these are shells and limiting beliefs and myths that we've all sort of absorbed. And so I see matrescence gives us an opportunity to really see that, heal and decondition ourselves, break out of these shells so we can live more courageously and true to who we truly are. So that's the other piece of my message is it's really about hope and empowerment.
Yeah, for sure. I've done this podcast for 5 years, and I think you might be the first person that I've talked to about this topic related to motherhood.
So even people who work with mothers haven't heard of matrescence yet, but it's become very popular this last month. There's been a campaign. Yeah, we're getting some traction. We're going to get that word in the dictionary so that all mothers understand. Like it's likened like adolescence. So it's just like, imagine for teens if we didn't have that word adolescence because it gives us so much knowledge and understanding. So
Sure.
it's a parallel type of developmental process. So
Yeah.
there's so much we can gain and learn and help women by understanding this word.
Most of the women listening are of a certain age, or over 40, 50. Is that something that can help them even now? I was a very young mother. We had our babies right away. I was 20 when I got married,
Yeah.
but my kids, but I still parent them. They're old, they're adults now. I almost
Yeah.
said they were old.
Apology.
Um, oops. But can that help the women listening too, as far as that matrescence?
I mean, I believe it can. I also feel like, I had been a mom for 9 years before I learned this term. And so when we learn terms that validate our experience and help us understand ourselves, it can be mixed because what first it's like, oh my goodness, thank you. Yes, that makes sense. Like this language, it represents my experience, right? And then though there can be, the shadow of it, which is, oh, I wish I knew sooner. So it can open us up to some grief because I mean, it's sad and unfortunate that this word, just didn't really get a lot of academic attention. And because it's a women's issue, it just, despite that there are professors at, Columbia University, and there are women who study matrescence and try very much to get it out there. It takes a lot, right? Get a new word in our vernacular. And it just sadly didn't. It's happening, but it's a bit late. And so I appreciate your question to say that, yeah, a mom who's now launched her kids is going to now, I think it helps. I think it helps them now understand their daughters or their daughter-in-laws and being a grandmother. So matrescence is a lifelong thing because, yes, you're an early stage mom. So there's that phase. Then you're now guiding your kids through sort of adolescence and all those changes your kids go through, you're simultaneously changing. Then of course, when they leave, that's, we call it the empty nest. We have words to sort of reflect that our identity and our roles and our whole life is changing now again and transforming. And, if you become a grandparent, that's a whole other phase. And so I do think it is incredibly still helpful to understand that word, but it just might come with a little bit of sadness and grief. Like there's a story I heard from a colleague of mine who was teaching the word matrescence to her grandmother who's in her 80s. And says, yeah,
Interesting.
grandmother. Yeah, she's like, there's this thing called matrescence. And she explains it, and you have these feelings of ambivalence and blah, 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 blah. And her grandma like paused, had like a little tear and said, I thought it was just all me. Like I thought I was doing it wrong. And so it just, yeah, when I hear stories like that, they just move me. And it just sort of like it really motivates me to spread the knowledge around matrescence because I think all stages of us women, if we are moms or we know moms, it just helps us understand.
Right. And there's always value in looking back and learning from what happened.
Yes,
What,
absolutely. And I
yeah.
think it could bring, for me, the word, and when I tell moms a light sort of goes off in their eyes when I explain it, because they're now understanding themselves better, and it comes with more compassion. I think it can bring, even if your kids are no longer in the home, I would hope that you having now this language, even if it is retrospectively, that
Yeah.
you can give yourself some grace and some self-compassion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mentioned that had kids young and I had twins. So we two at
Okay.
once and right off the bat. So I wasn't that long ago actually where I was thinking, I kind of grew up with my girls in a
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
both of us did. So yeah.
Absolutely. We do.
And
We
that's
do grow up again, through
yeah.
parenting. That's right.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, you talk about the things that we go through, the thing in any time of life, probably, but a lot right now, like our exhaustion triggers, our sense of losing ourselves. It's not just about motherhood, but it's connected to our old stories and expectations. What does that mean? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm in the phase, I should, I guess, age myself here for your audience. I just turned 50 last year and I'm in perimenopause. And at the same time, because I had my kids later, I was
Hmm.
34 when I had my first. And so, I'm in, of course, in a house with three adolescents who have all their hormones. And then I'm going through my own new phase of,
I am so sorry.
fun. It's fun. It's a lot of emotion, a lot of learning, but I joke. It is challenging at times for sure. And again, I do believe that it's opportunities. Like even, the symptoms of perimenopause, I've really been working a lot with almost even coming back to my roots of my mindfulness practice and offering self-kindness and compassion to myself, because the new roller coaster of intense emotions that can come in this phase of life, midlife phase is I think of an awakening. It is shifting. It is an identity transformation. And it can feel like really bumpy moments. And so what do we lean on to understand it? So there's different ways of making sense of it. But then my experiences, I've had to yet again in this phase, this chapter, what are my anchors or my pillars, or what practical practices can help me through what feels like pretty tumultuous moods and emotional reactivity, also paired with, yeah, what am I focusing on for this next phase of my life? Like, I have found that there's been a real shift for me in recognizing and being more discerning with where is my time and energy going, like a self-care in next sort of deep way, because the
Sure.
world is very interesting right now. It's very noisy. We could completely lose ourselves in the external world. And so for me, it's been to just really choose more quiet, really choose, be more mindful, to not get so distracted with the noise of the world, for my own self-care, for my own emotional mental health, to really focus in inwardly. And so that's kind of the chapter that I'm in right now. And it's feeling very nourishing. I'm really enjoying it. And it feels like there's some wisdom in it. I feel like that's a wisdom that I'm getting now that, I would use words like self-care 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Teaching as a therapist, have been helping and guiding people on their healing journeys for years, 20 years actually. But I feel like at this midlife moment for me and where I am at, I am understanding it with a lot more depth and a lot more wisdom about what does it really mean to take care of ourselves, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in all of the ways that we are thriving in our life. I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question. It's pretty, I went a little
Yeah.
off with it.
Well, it was a big topic. Yeah, but I like the fact that I've seen this and experienced this too in other people too, where you talk about self care, and at one stage of your life, it's like, yeah, it's self care, take a bubble bath, whatever. But now, as midlife women, we're like, no, that it's way more than that, and I can appreciate it
Yes.
more and what it
That's
really
right.
means. Yeah.
That's right. Like self-care is about having boundaries, right?
Yes.
Learning to say no. That's been, one of those moments for me. I was like, yeah, I could have used that, sure, in my 20s, but now I'm like, I just don't have time to mess around anymore with pleasing people. Like I do
Yeah.
think women at this phase of life, there is a real surgence of We don't know how much time we have left here, and we're sort of done putting everybody else's needs, like as we've been conditioned socially as women,
Right.
right? Like there's,
Right.
and I don't, deny the gifts of being a caretaker. Those are beautiful, wonderful skills that we have to manage relationships, but women tend to do it too much. We do lean overall, of course, I'm generalizing, but if this resonates and you found yourself, prioritizing other people's feelings over your own, that gets exhausting. And I think that catches up with us at this phase of life. And I think that's a great, great thing.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you said the gifts of caregiving.
Yeah.
We usually talk about as, yeah, I took care of everybody else, like you were just saying, and now it's my turn. And it
Yeah.
almost gives it a negative connotation, but
Yeah.
no, I love how you said that.
Yeah.
That's gonna stick in my brain.
That's it.
We're talking about that from now on. Love it. You have written a book about all of this, and I love the title, Unburdening Motherhood.
Thank
And
you.
that, yes, a guide, I'll say the rest of it, a guide to breaking cycles, healing trauma, and becoming a self-led mom. So what led you to write the book? This I'm always interested to see, why do people write books? I want to know.
Well, because I think it was with that energy of wanting to spread the word, wanting to help other moms, because this word of matrescence, and it's such a profound journey. And without that language, I feel like women are out there on their own, sort of flailing around and probably blaming themselves and being too hard on themselves and not understanding that they're in this amazing opportunity of development and growth. And they can harness it if we understand it, right? That's the thing, is understanding then leads to action and support, and we can get that clarity. Okay, well, what do we need? Because every woman's matrescence journey will be unique and unique to her. And so for me, I learned a particular model of psychotherapy ironically at that same time in my life. I came upon to learn about internal family systems and started studying it, and found it to be incredibly effective and helpful for me. As I said, to go inside and understand what's happening with the parts of me that are reacting and having a lot of different mixed feelings. And this model really, really helped very quickly, which I think is important because moms don't have a lot of time. And I would sit and I could do like a 20-minute meditation and connect with a part of me inside and sort of follow the protocol of the model to really befriend what 20 minutes earlier I was really disliking about a part of me, and then I could come to understand it, befriend it, and then feel so much relief and so much more, I guess I would say, integration of self, like just to feel more like myself versus the stress of sort of feeling these inner tug of wars that we can have sometimes, right, internally.
Mhm.
And I thought, this is amazing. This is so helpful to understand for me through being a parent, to understand my triggers, my reactions, how to be more self-led. That's where the self-led word comes from, is that IFS model. And I just thought, well, I guess, yeah. And I do enjoy writing. I've always kind of loved writing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, book was the way I thought, I'm going to spread my word and share it with other moms and give them that guide so that they can know how they can help themselves. So it's
Yeah.
very sort of chapter by chapter, understand your different parts and how do you connect with your parts. So every chapter has exercises so they can sort of follow along,
Okay.
um, and hopefully experience some real inner shifts themselves. It's my
Yeah,
hope.
for sure.
Yeah.
In your journey through motherhood or through your career, you can pick whenever. What would be your most courageous moment
Yeah.
so far? I was at so far.
Thank you. Yeah, there's more. There's more courageous moments to come, right?
Yes.
Yeah, probably sort of feel like it's parenting my neurodiverse kid. I've had to really learn a lot about his particular needs and the way his nervous system gets activated. And it's been a real journey. And it takes a lot of courage because there's a lot that people don't yet know or understand about what my son has, and other people have this as well, but it's not like a formal diagnosis currently. And I know across the globe, because I'm in the community, to understand this particular profile. But, it takes a lot of advocacy and education and really standing up for my son. That takes a lot of courage because it feels exhausting. It can sort of feel like swimming upstream. And why didn't I just I notice it in myself because some days I'm like, I go on the Facebook groups and I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to think about it today. Like it feels too hard. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
but I'm also passionate about it. And I want to be part of the movement to help educate communities around this particular neurodiversity. And so I have to rally the parts of me that can feel courageous to do that work. It feels really important. Yeah,
Good.
that's
Wonderful.
most timely for me right now. Thank you for the question.
To the moms out there listening, no matter what stage they're in, if they had their children later in life, or maybe they're like me, they're out of the house, what would be your main message to them?
Yeah, my main message is to find more ways of offering themselves grace and self-compassion. Because, through with all the women I've been working with, whether they're mothers or not, over 20 years, we are so incredibly hard on ourselves. The parts of us that the inner critic, we might call it, really want us, drive us to be perfect. Of course, we understand a lot of that comes from, wanting to live a good life, do what society tells us is going to make us happy. We're socialized humans, but a lot of that messaging that we've gotten is wrong and erroneous. And so I would just invite a mom to see if she can see, and not to berate herself if she tried to follow that path that we've been told is going to lead to happiness, to turn inward and just give herself some grace and compassion, because we do follow along to survive and avoid discomfort and avoid what's painful. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, by playing it safe to stay protected, and I don't believe we live to our full potential, because the world, and what we've been taught is so erroneous. I mean, it's sexist, it's got a lot of colonialist, racist, like, we've got a lot of issues still we need to heal. And so if we have absorbed in any way, and most of us have, it's impossible to not, even subconsciously, that as a woman are, these misogynistic ideals, or that, caretaking, for instance, isn't as important as a contribution as earning money. Say, if you weren't earning money outside of the home, you worked and you contributed and you matter. And so I see too often women don't see themselves through that lens, that they matter just as much, and that what they contribute is so important, and that they deserve self-care and kindness and nourishment and love, and their needs to be met.
Right. I think at this point, midlife, yeah, we hear those messages, and we have the ability, usually the time, to look inward and do that. And I want to make sure that we're telling the younger generation too, like my daughters, anyone's daughters, start younger so that they can get that message and not have to wait until they're
Yes.
40,
Yes.
50,
I feel like
whatever.
my sense of the younger generation is they do have a little more sense of, they are
Yeah.
vocal. They are vocal, and they sort
Yeah.
of are requiring
Yeah.
more emotional intelligence, which is
Yeah.
great. I
That's,
think that is a definitely progress from
yes,
past generations, right?
very encouraging.
Very hopeful. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Well, Angele, could you just let the listeners know where they would find you if they want to get your book or learn more about what you do?
Yeah, I have my own website, www.drangeleclose.com, and there's links there for my book and other resources, and it just talks about me and where you can connect with me if you're interested.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Before we go, is there any one last little message you want to make sure the listeners get from you?
I think I'll just leave them with, you matter. Just, you matter. So treat yourself like that today. Yeah. Don't take anything for granted, especially yourself and the light and the love and the beauty that you are.
Wonderful. We cannot hear that enough.
Exactly, right? We should hear that
Yes.
every day. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope we get to talk again soon.
Would love to. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you for listening to Midlife with Courage. If you liked what you heard, I would love it if you would leave a review. Or even better, send a link of this episode to a friend. Until next time, take care of your beautiful self.